What's up guys, I'm Lee Morris with Fstoppers.com. Today I've got my hands on the 5D Mark III and Tamron's newest 2470 with vibration compensation. Is this lens good enough to replace the 2470 by Canon? Today we're going to find out. Now you may be wondering why you would even consider this lens, and if you're the type of person that shoots in low light and you like shooting handheld, you don't have a tripod with you everywhere you go, you're going to want a lens with image stabilization, or what Tamron calls vibration compensation. And this is actually the first full frame lens that can do that. That is a 24-70mm. A lot of wedding photographers like me are shooting what's called fusion now, where you're shooting both stills and video, and a lens like this is absolutely perfect for that because you can shoot images full frame and then you can flip on vibration compensation and get super steady, high quality video on the exact same lens. So one of the main reasons you're going to want to buy this lens is because it has vibration compensation built in. And I'm going to do a quick non-scientific test here. I'm going to shake the camera at 70mm without vibration compensation on, and then while I'm shaking it, I'm going to flip it on, and hopefully you'll be able to see a significant difference in the footage. Okay, so I'm recording now and I'm just giving it a little shake at 70mm, but it's really a lot. You can really tell. It's wrecking the footage, and I'll flip vibration compensation on, keep shaking it, and you can see, wow, it just almost completely stops the shake, and I'm shaking it a lot. You can imagine if you hold it still like this, it almost looks like I've got the camera on a tripod or some sort of steady cam. It's just barely floating around. The vibration compensation in this lens is really incredible, and if you shoot video handheld a lot like we do, you just can't live without it. Now I own the DX version of this lens, which is the 17-50mm 2.8, and it is a fantastic lens for video, like I said, but I've found that it's just not sharp enough to shoot weddings with, so I end up using it only for videos and never for stills. I'm really excited to test this lens out to see if it's actually good enough for both. So now we're going to go outside and test the sharpness of the Tamron 2470 versus the older version of Canon's 24-70mm lens. To do this, we are taking everybody's favorite picture, a brick wall. We decided to shoot each of these lenses on a tripod at 24mm, 50mm, 70mm at each different f-stop, and then we compared each of the images at 100% in the center and at the edge. Now I wish I could tell you that, oh, the Tamron is fantastic and it absolutely destroys the Canon, or the Tamron's terrible and the Canon's much better, but of course it just can't be that simple. So it's a little bit complicated, but here's what we found. At 24mm, the Canon was simply better. You can see a significant difference. The Canon is a little bit sharper in the center, but it's much sharper on the edges. The Canon also doesn't struggle with vignetting like the Tamron does. This is where things get a little bit strange. We zoomed into 50mm. We first started at 2.8, and we noticed again that Canon was slightly sharper in the center, and on the edges, Tamron did suffer from some vignetting, but we noticed that Tamron all of a sudden was sharper on the edges than the Canon. That was kind of a big shock to us. So we stopped it down, and at 5.6, it was even more noticeable. We then zoomed into 70mm. We still have the same problem with vignetting at 2.8. But in terms of sharpness, they were about the same. Canon was a little bit sharper in the center, as always, but Tamron seemed to do a little bit better on the edges. At 70mm at 5.6, again, Canon was slightly sharper in the center, but Tamron was significantly sharper on the edges. It was quite shocking how much better it was on the edges. So what we found is there's no clear winner here. If you're looking for just sharpness in the center, then yes, by all means, Canon wins this hands down. If you have a problem with vignetting, then Canon wins this hands down. But if you're looking for a lens that's slightly cheaper, it's actually significantly cheaper than the new version of the 2470 and has vibration reduction, the Tamron is a fantastic deal at $1,300. And if you need the vibration compensation, this is really your only option at this point. As a wedding photographer, I'm not too worried about vignetting. If anything, I add vignettes after the fact. So the fact that this lens has a vignette problem at 2.8, that's really not an issue to me at all. I'm really worried about sharpness. I want my images to look clean, and this lens seemed to do pretty well compared to the 2470 Canon. Now this lens also has an ultrasonic focus system in it, which means it's going to be very quick, very accurate, very quiet focusing, and it's actually focusing internally, so nothing's going to be rotating in the front. Very similar to the Canon version there, so you're not going to see too big of a difference. We did notice it was slightly slower at focusing, and the zoom does not feel quite as nice as the Canon either. It's a little bit stiff, but I've noticed over time with my other Tamron lenses, they seem to break in a little bit and get easier to rotate. One significant difference is that the front element of this lens is actually significantly bigger. It's an 82mm front element, so you're going to have to get a different filter on the front if you already have filters for your 2470 Canon version. The Canon version has a 77mm front. If you'd like to learn more about this lens and see the high-res shots that we took with both lenses, head over to the link in the description below, and we will have all of those pictures available for you to download.